our last Pizza for the Pros for the semester.
Yes! All right!
If you're in the front rows, please be quiet because we can hear you if you're chit-chatting. So do not talk because we'll hear it on camera. Let us welcome, let me get this thing going. Let's welcome Ashlyn Sullivan again. So Ashlyn arrived in Philadelphia 2.5 years ago, Flyers pre and post game live. Then she's also ringside reporter at times. And then this is what she really loves. She loves football. Okay, so she covered the Eagles, was at the Super Bowl, also hosted Birds Huddle during the course of the season. But she started, and she also works at WIP. How many of you have heard her on WIP? There you go. Look at the hands.
Thanks for listening.
There you go. They're listening. And then she worked for the Jacksonville Jaguars for 6 years. 6 years, was a team reporter for the Jags, did a lot of Jags programming, so she really loves football. So we're going to get into that as well. So let's start. First of all, you were telling me you have not been to Glassboro, New Jersey before.
No, I love it here though. It's so pretty.
So what did you think?
I love a suburb.
Yeah?
I'm still adjusting to city life coming from Jacksonville, so yeah, a suburb is where it's at.
That's where it's at. So tell everybody about your background a little bit, like where you went to college, when you decided to get into this crazy business, when did you make that decision?
Truthfully, and I think it's an answer that I think you hear a lot, is I've just always known I wanted to do this. So it's the only thing I've ever wanted to do since I was 10 years old. This is all I've ever talked about. And I think at times to be successful in this, you have to treat it like it is the only option, because I think a lot of times you'll get pushed off the road and try to go down a different path. So this to me has always been the only option. I'm born and raised Florida, so this adjustment to Philadelphia 2 years ago was gnarly at first. City living in winter, and like, for example, I didn't even know what four-wheel drive was until I moved up here, so that was definitely an adjustment. But went to the University of Florida, went to high school at St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, so that was a big-time football program in South Florida. So started really covering football and doing some play-by-play there in high school, and that's when I really found my love for football. And truthfully, at first, I didn't know if it was going to be sports broadcasting or sports management. I worked in recruiting for the University of Florida, so that's where I really got into the X's and O's of college football. And I was really thankful in Gainesville at the University of Florida. We had a station, ESPN Gainesville, and that started giving me my on-air reps, which I always tell people to get reps in college is so impactful, because you just have to do this 2,000 times, and you're going to stink the first 2,000 times, and the quicker you get rid of it, that's always how it. So Jacksonville came, I graduated without a job, felt like a huge loser, moved home with mom and dad, had no job, and saw an internship for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was a production internship, no promise of being on camera, 6 months. I took it. I wrapped XLRs. I held boom mics over Calais Campbell's head, 6'8", arms shaking. Like, it was a brutal internship. And by the end of it, I was just bugging my boss every day to put me on camera. And finally, he let me do some community stories with the Jaguars. And by the end of the internship, they didn't have anyone on camera yet for the Jaguars. So finally, they offered me a full-time job, team reporter. And I never thought it would be 6 seasons, but it was. And made the playoffs a couple years. That was really cool, and got to experience a first-round draft pick, Trevor Lawrence. That was an awesome experience. Working for Urban Meyer, that was interesting. And then never, truthfully, so 6 seasons went by, and I knew I was ready for my next step. It took about a year, truthfully, to find this next job. And when they say you least expect it, I had worked with an agency that was trying to find me a new gig, and he called, he said, how about hockey in Philadelphia? And I was like, I drive a truck, I'm from the South, not a big hockey market. I was like, no shot, they pick me. And sure enough, they did. And here we are.
What did you know about hockey before you arrived here in Philadelphia?
So when I was growing up in South Florida, the Florida Panthers were brutal. Like, they were a brutal hockey team. So, I mean, I remember going in elementary school to field trips, and they would just let buses in for free just to fill the stands. Like, that's how bad they were. Tampa Bay Lightning were a little better, but I didn't know a ton, truthfully. I really had to study. I feel like I made some mistakes in my tryouts, but I was able to show my personality with Scott Hartnell and Al Morganti. And after a couple mistakes, truthfully, I thought, I don't think they're going to pick me. So we ended up just having a great time in the tryout. And I grew really, really close to them, didn't think I was going to get it. And that's why NBC said they chose me is because I was able to make mistakes and push past it and still have fun and show personality. But when I got the job was really when the crash course of hockey started. Scott and Al, I owe them my life. We went to lunch a couple of times and we just like dialed in. The first month was rough and, you know, learning terms I didn't hear before, but I'm so grateful for them because they really pulled me along those first couple of months.
I think Al's been doing it for a little while.
Yeah, he gets it.
He's been around for a little while. And Scotty Hart you know, the way you guys have worked together as a group has really been terrific. So, you take the risk, you take a hockey job, and then you decide somehow you end up getting football, which you wanted to do here in Philadelphia. How did that happen?
It was a huge risk. I had so many people tell me, truthfully, not a lot of people thought I should take this gig here in Philly. I had a full-time job in the NFL, working in sunny Jacksonville, making a good salary, health insurance. They're like, why are you going to move to Philadelphia? Part-time hockey, a job you don't know. And it was just something in me just knew if I took the swing and got to this big-time sports market, I just knew I was somehow going to cover football. I didn't know how, but I remember one of my coworkers saying that, take your swing and see what happens. And I didn't want to be stuck and not take this. And then 8 years later, still be in Jacksonville, be like, why didn't I take the chance? So I did, and truthfully, it was a lot of beating your head against the wall at first, coming up with ideas, and I think the reason now that I am full-time Eagles is I just continued to volunteer to go. I would go to every OTA. I'd go to every mandatory mini camp, every training camp practice, and they would say, you know, we don't have an assignment for you, and I would just say, I want to go. And that grew the knowledge of the team when it was time to assign us to things. Oh, well, Ashlyn's been there for 3 months. Let's just put her on it, is how I kind of took it. I think it's a lot of just not taking no for an answer. Continuing to go for free every Saturday during the summer, go to a mandatory mini camp, go to a rookie mini camp. You're watching, you know, a backup right guard battle in May, and there's not a lot of people there, but I was there. And that's why I think I am where I am now.
Awesome. All right, so there's a little bit of background about Ashlyn. Let's go with your questions for Ashlyn Sullivan. Go ahead, Skylar.
Do you prepare like any differently from when you're like on the sideline or ringside compared to being like in the studio as like hosting?
Big time, yes. So studio, I would say it's a little more lengthy preparation, much more script-based. You have a teleprompter, working a lot with your producer, whereas ringside is much more, or sideline for Eagles. For example, pre-game Eagles home game, we have about 45-second hits. I'll probably have 3 of them. I'm working on those hits all week long. Like I have an idea by Wednesday, like, okay, I think I want Saquon against the Commanders' run defense. Well, that means I need Saquon's input. I need the offensive coordinator's input. I need a teammate's input. I need an offensive lineman's input. So you're getting all this input for 45 seconds. And I don't think people realize how much goes into those hits. Whereas studio is much more, I think, rinse, wash, repeat, especially in hockey. There's so many games where you'll use something from 3 weeks ago and not necessarily because you prepped it. That's why I'm a big believer, and not everyone agrees or goes this way, but it works for me. I have to go to every practice. I have to go to every morning skate. I have to go to every walkthrough because I'm a believer. You're going to get something, and you might not get it for that game, but 3 weeks from now you're going to use and be like, wow, I'm so glad I went to that morning skate because Noah Kate said this, and now I'm using it 3 weeks later, which takes a lot of your time. And I'm still working on the work-life balance of that. Getting to every practice is unrealistic at times in a hockey season, but I try because I think it's definitely worth it.
So I should also mention this, you do in-game, aren't you in-game host for the Eagles as well? Don't you play that role as well, right?
Yes.
Is that the 45-second hits that you're referring to?
No.
Oh,
so
are those for Eagles pregame live?
Those are for Eagles pregame
Pregame live.
Yeah.
Okay, but you also do Eagles in-game work for them, right? Don't you do?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm their red zone reporter. So
Okay.
in Jacksonville, on the video boards, we brought this role to Jacksonville where it's just like Scott Hansen on NFL Network where you show the red zone highlights in stadium. Obviously, if you're at an Eagles game, you're not watching most likely what's going on around the NFL. So we brought that to Philly where I'll read highlights in game, about 45 seconds once a quarter, which is really cool. It's really fun.
And you've done that how long now?
I've done 2 years for the Eagles, and I did it the full 6 in Jacksonville.
It's pretty good. All right.
Scott Hansen would be a pretty cool gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. He just got a new EA Sports too.
He deserves it.
And Scott worked at Comcast back in the day, and now is doing very well for himself.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right, Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, so being in a high school like St. Thomas, where their football team is nationally known, what was it like, and how do you think it helped you covering a team that would play teams from not just around the state of Florida, but I believe from around the country? What was that like?
It was awesome. I mean, they were 3-time state champions when I was in high school, so getting to cover state championships like that. And then every year they kick off. I mean, the first year we played at Texas Stadium. That was really cool, and covering that. And I think it really gave me the love of football, and also being a part of a huge program like that. Also being a female in high school, like, you really had to know your stuff because people were really paying attention to high school football there. I mean, I have friends in Georgia and Texas. High school football is everything in the South. So it was like, you better learn or you better get out, and quickly at 16 years old, which I think is a good crash course for everyone. Is at times you just kind of have to pretend you got it all figured out for the best and work hard at it. So it was definitely a crash course at first.
As you look out here in the crowd, we have a fair number of women.
Yeah.
What was
Cool
it
stuff.
like when you first started as a woman?
In high school?
In working in the industry as a woman, and now what is it like today? Give me a sense of the growth of women in this industry.
Oh, it's been awesome. Truthfully, I get asked this question a lot. I think I had a harder time starting out in this industry. I think I got more, not slack's the wrong word. I think people would pressure me more because of how young I was. I got the Jaguars gig at 22 years old, and I was by far the youngest person in the Jaguars organization, and I felt like I was making more mistakes because I was so young and inexperienced, rather than people looking at me, oh, this is happening because she's a woman. I think if you are a constant pro, no one can criticize you, no one can pull the woman card. I mean, I trust my coworkers. If anyone were to pull that card, they would say how hard I've worked. I think when you have total confidence in your prep, like, no one can try you because you're a woman or because you're 22. Like, if you put in the work, like, I dare someone to say, I don't belong because of this. And that's kind of just the mindset I've always had with it.
Well done. Okay. Who's next? In the back.
What was that entire process like from going to New Orleans and then back to Philadelphia and your Xfinity Live and taking the duel?
Yeah. It was a wild week. So the Super Bowl, I was there Monday through Saturday, and I think a lot of people assumed I would just stay for the game, but the information I got, and I think the hardest thing, that was my first Super Bowl I've ever worked. Obviously the Jaguars didn't make it to the Super Bowl when I was working. And you're so used to the entire season, you get pretty close to the guys. I mean, even in Philadelphia, I would say you're one of 40 reporters in the locker room for every practice, which was an adjustment in itself, coming from Jacksonville, where I was one of 5 reporters in the locker room. So fighting to, like, a Saquon Barkley scrum. Like, you're one of 40, you better get your question in, you better figure out how. So you're screaming over people, and it's this very hostile environment. I go the first day of the Super Bowl and times that by 50. I mean, trying to get a question into Saquon, which is frustrating when you're on the beat and you know him, but now there's 600 reporters asking what his favorite color is. And you're like, we are playing a Super Bowl in 6 days, and we're asking what our favorite color is. So that was a wild experience. I feel like I grew, not gonna lie, I cried the first night because I was so stressed out and upset that I didn't get my story. It was very overwhelming, but you have to work a couple of those big events, and another great example of you better just buck up because you have to be strong enough in those environments. I mean, I remember I'm standing in a Travis Kelce scrum, and I have Jeff Darlington on my left hip, and I have Stacey Dales on my right. And that was like, wow, like, you're with big time national reporters and you have to get your story in. So Monday through Saturday was all getting information, then coming back to Philly and bringing all that information back, I thought was really cool because it gave the nugget of, like, what New Orleans was like. And I think you need that scene setter almost. And then Xfinity Live was insane. That I couldn't hear myself talk. I couldn't hear my producer. Cooper DeJean's pick 6 was electric. It was awesome.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. Who's next? Go ahead, Sam.
Ashlyn, earlier you talked about your internship with the Jaguars. How did you ask them to get on-air events? You mentioned community events. How would you nudge them in a way that wasn't fun?
Yes, I still, my caddy will know, I still toe the line of being annoying and being professional and not asking too much. I truthfully still, I just turned 30, I still am figuring out how to toe that line because I'm such a go-getter that at times it's too much and you got to pull it back. Back then at 22, I think I found the most success in finding mentors that I could go with. So we had a senior correspondent, Brian Sexton, who had been there for forever. He was our analyst. And I would just volunteer to go with him. And then I would ask to do a practice stand-up. And always in a respectful way where it was at the end of the shoot or I wasn't bothering anyone. And I would ask my boss to go over my stand-up with me whenever he had time. And I think finally my boss saw me getting better and better. Looking back, I was not ready to be on camera for an NFL team at 22 years old. And they knew that. I didn't know that at the time. I was like, why are they not putting me on camera? Looking back, I hadn't earned the opportunity to do that yet. So I think it's constantly volunteering to go and finding mentors that can help you along the way and always towing that line, which I still have to remind myself to not being an annoying pest. Because reporters have to be that way sometimes.
Mike, what is it like? Give me a sense of Ashlyn, how she's made the transition from primarily Flyers and now to being covering the Eagles quite a bit.
You want me to give the real answer?
You can call me annoying, it's okay.
Just so everybody knows, Mike is the
She just
senior.
said it.
Mike is the senior supervising producer at NBC Sports Philly. For those of you who might not know, Mike has also been with us for 4 years, oversees all our internships with our program. So go ahead, Mike.
No, she just said it. Like, we almost have to tell Ashlyn, can you just take a breath and not go? Like, take a breather. Like, you just did this, this, and this. But she goes. And to her credit, that's why she does. Why she's moved into these Eagles roles and things like that. And we could see it right away. Like, I mean, I've said this. Like the minute we started doing, started getting Bird's Huddle reps, you could tell you were so much more relaxed right from the get go, because it's what your passion is, and you see that and you do. But Ashlyn does. I mean, constantly communicating with me and other people about story ideas and hey, can we do this? What cameras do we have? Things like that. Rarely am I going to her to do something. It's usually the other way around. Which is a credit. I mean, I think. The one story we just did a week ago is the first time in a while where I've gone to you and said, hey, let's go do, you want to feel old, Neil? 25th anniversary of Keith Primo's 5 overtime goals coming up.
I was there that night. Let's go.
May 4th, 2000.
Let's go.
So
What was that? What was it?
May 4th, 2000.
Oh my God.
We went to his house. It was pretty cool.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, so we sent, Joe Fordyce helped arrange it, but I said, Joe, we should be doing this story, so they went down. But Ashlyn's always trying to come up with things. The planning that she talks about, her pregame hits, she's communicating with our producer throughout the week. Hey, I want to do this, I'm going to have that, that's a credit to her for being able to come forth and, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, let's do it.
I think what Mike's saying is really important for everybody to understand. You see the way she was proactive in going to Mike, who Mike's not technically her boss. I mean, he's part. I guess, are you her boss?
No.
Not really.
Yes.
Doug Brown is, right? I guess.
We have a lot of bosses.
Yeah, you have a lot of bosses. But no, she's going to her supervisors and giving suggestions, volunteering to be somewhere. I mean, that kind of initiative is what's going to help you improve your stock with any company. Just remember that, because she's giving you prime examples of how she improved her career based on how you were proactive and say, hey, I'm available, I'll be there, never saying no.
Yeah.
Did you just kind of pick this up over time? Did you realize it when you were watching other people? How did you take this kind of attitude that you had and saying, man, I'm going to say yes to everything, I'm going to do this? What gave you that kind of knowledge that was the right way to go about it?
Truthfully, I've always, it's going to sound funny, I've never been the smartest person in the room. I had to work my butt off to get into the University of Florida in the fall. I had to go in the spring because I didn't get in the fall, so I had to do community college in Tampa and then get into the University of Florida in the spring. For some reason, my whole life, I've just always had to have this work ethic, and I think people are always going to try you on your success rate or on camera, how you look, how you sound, how smart you are in the building, but no one can ever question your work ethic. And that's always just the one thing. I just knew that was going to be my thing. Some people are really witty and funny on camera. Some people are brilliant X's and O's. I always knew this was going to have to be my thing for me to succeed. I'll also say, I think what really helps with Gaddy and I, what we're talking about, I'm very grateful now my time with the Jaguars having to do production, I encourage everyone who wants to do anything in broadcast, you have to understand what the camera operator is going through, what the audio technician's going through, what the editor is going through, because I meet a lot of people in this business who've only done on camera, and they just don't understand the work that goes behind it. And I think to make a great interview, you have to understand all the different assets of it. So I would really encourage anyone. I think, for me, I still edit a ton of my own video. Like, I edit my own reels, or I edit my own social media clips. Like, understanding how to edit, how to shoot, how to wrap an XLR. Like, our camera operator, Jeff Richardson, I'm always helping him on the field wrapping XLRs. Like, this takes such teamwork, and a lot of times I don't see it, and I think that will also make you stand out if you understand every asset of a production.
Well put. Well put. All right, Carrie, you had a question.
Yeah, so you started so young. How did you ensure you were not being taken advantage of?
It's a great question, and I'm still working on it, truthfully. I still have a hard time of fighting things professionally, and I think when you're 22, you can become, and I'm always just the person, I get really fired up. I'm really passionate about this, and I have trouble toning it down. So there's times I'll go guns blazing, and I'm like, Ashlyn, turn around, and let's address it in the morning. Let's sleep on it. So I think that is a skill set that as a young person is very important to have, is not taking things too personally, which when you really care about something is hard. That was, I think, the hardest part of not being taken advantage of, is being able to learn how to communicate professionally and have a disagreement professionally, not get emotional, not crying. Like, don't be that girl that cries at work. I was one of them. I still am kind of at times. But learning how to do that at a young age is truthfully still something I'm working on. I think I'm always going to have to work on that of, like my dad always says, like, never go into a work meeting too emotional. So there's times where I want to address something that day, and I got to sleep on it for 3 days. And I got to go into it more clear-headed, with some stats, with some numbers. Like, don't go in at me, emotion. Like, how does it benefit the company is something that has definitely been a work in progress. Still is.
That's a good question. I like it. Right here. Go ahead, Maggie.
How did you, if you grew up like a Jacksonville fan, you grew up in Florida, how have you been able to take your fandom out of your work and like be professional about it?
Yeah, I think when you work for a team, especially as a team reporter, it's a very unique job, because the Jaguars were my paychecks, and you're having lunch with these players, you're traveling with them, so you do become very close to the organization. And especially, it was a great learning experience for me working for the Jaguars between, 2018 through 2021. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL. And learning how to go into a locker room on a Thursday when they just got beat by 40, and you better have your questions ready. I think, truthfully, it's made me better in the Eagles locker room, because if you can get a great answer from a team like that, well, Saquon Barkley ripping off 200 yards, that's easy now. Whereas Jaguars was not easy in that way. I think, at least here with Philadelphia, it's easy for me because I didn't grow up here, where I definitely see there's fandom everywhere here. I sense it a lot with WIP, like the callers I get, like they're so fired up. And to me, it's like at times I don't get it because I didn't grow up here, but I have to have the understanding of why they feel that way. And that's something that's been, I always try to be mindful. Like, just because I don't feel that doesn't mean I have to discredit how they feel. Because a lot of times WIP at first was really hard for me, not being from here. You have no idea what they're going to call about. And I'll have guys call about something that happened 20 years ago and I was barely born. And I'm like, but I got to be just as fired up as them. So you better, like, for me, radio has something that I've really had to learn the Philadelphia market, because radio was so hard. It's not something you can prepare for. You can do your best, but they're going to throw curveballs at you, and it's like, I was 2 when that happened. But I have to be passionate about it.
Had you done radio before Philadelphia?
So radio was my first job, but not really. I always tell the story because it's still so funny. ESPN Gainesville, so
That's right.
The University of Florida, Aaron Andrews and Laura Rutledge both went to the University of Florida, and they are still my queens. And our sports director, Steve Russell, told me my first day, I walked into his office as soon as I got into Florida, I told him I wanted to cover Florida Gator football. He said, you're a freshman, you're going to cover gymnastics. So I did. They won a national championship. That was pretty cool that year. But he told me Aaron and Laura both did morning line radio in Gainesville, which is 5:30 in the morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm in a sorority. I'm 19 years old, and I have to wake up at 5 a.m. to do sports radio. And then when I graduated, my senior year, Steve told me that he was lying and they never did that. So I did sports radio in Gainesville for 3 years, which was awesome, but terrible at the same time, because when you're in college, as we all know, we don't want to wake up at 5:30 Wednesday morning.
So you actually did sports talk. Okay,
Yes.
engaged. Okay, you
Yes.
weren't just covering a team. Because there's a difference between covering a team
Oh,
on
yeah.
radio and then being a talk show host.
Yes.
All right, so now give me your sense of Philadelphia fans.
Oh, they're the best. They're nuts in the best way. Like I've never seen anything, and I knew that when I flew up for my tryout. It was when the Phillies were in the World Series, and I remember flying over. It was a home game, and I remember seeing the crowd being like, "I've never seen anything like this," and I hope I get this job to experience this. And it's been crazy. It's definitely you got to know your stuff is the one thing, and I feel like at first it was proving to the fan base that even though I'm not from here, and I think a lot of people scratch their head like, Florida girl, truck driver, country like this, she doesn't fit here. And at first I didn't. And I think I had to prove really the first year that I'm here to stay, I know what I'm talking about, and just bear with me, which was a work in progress. 'Cause I feel like most people who work here have some tie to Philly.
Gerasmos, what was a Philly fan like?
The best.
They are the best.
Yeah.
They're the most passionate, they're the loudest, and they do know their stuff. I mean, they really care about the teams, their success, and I mean, you know it. They let you know if you're bad or if you're actually
Yeah.
meeting expectations. And thankfully, the Eagles didn't get that at all because they were tremendous.
Yes, but I still, like, I'll go to the grocery store and someone's asked me about Tyler Steen in the backup guard battle. I'm like, it's May.
I mean, he could start next year.
He could start, yeah, but like,
Serious now.
we're in aisle 8 and we're talking about Tyler Steen. Like, that doesn't happen in Jacksonville.
I'm just trying to buy some eggs right now, okay? Eggs are expensive. I'm looking at the prices right now.
But
Hang
let's talk
on.
Tyler Steen.
Yeah. Let's talk. All right, who's next? Go ahead, Hannah.
Talk to me a little bit more about how you walk through the more emotional side of sports, especially because it is a male-dominant field, and no offense, they don't understand emotions as much as women do sometimes. So how does that work when you're working in a professional world and you're working with mostly men, coming from that standpoint of view?
I think at least having emotion and being a woman helps me a lot, especially in a post-game locker room. A lot of times I'll ask the guys about the emotions of a game, and I feel like I get better answers where it always drives me nuts. And this is maybe just a pet peeve of mine, but we'll be in a scrum and someone's asking the coordinator or the player, take me through this play. I saw it this way. You were in this coverage and you missed this block. And it's like, don't tell the player what he missed. He knows better than all of us. And that will drive me nuts. And I think at times players will shut down because of that. And a lot of the beat is very analytical, very X's and O's. And while I do have to know that, I always like the side of the emotion of the game. And I feel like I get better answers from a Saquon or an AJ Brown asking the emotional lead up to that. And I think it really helps, like we talk about being present every single day. There are so many times in a post-game Eagles locker room, there's a scrum around AJ of 60 people, and I just sit back and wait. And I wait for everyone to leave, and I just look at him, and I know he knows me, I know him, I'm there every day, and I'll get a one-on-one just because I have that relationship. And that's why I think it's so important to show up. They might not know your name, they might not know everything about you, but especially when it came to the playoffs and every single TV network in the world was in the locker room, they don't know anybody. Or I remember in the Super Bowl, Landon Dickerson, we're at media night, there's 300 people, and he's like, oh my God, it's you. It's like, oh my God, it's you. Like he just recognized me. And that, I think, pays off day to day when you can just be present, especially covering a big time team like the Eagles in a run like this.
Relationships. You
Yeah.
said the word, relationships. How important have you found relationships in your experience?
Oh, they're everything. And I think it's been a work in progress, especially with the Eagles, not coming across always, I need this, talk to me about this. It's going up to Sidney Brown and asking how his ACL's feeling. Or it's going up to Lane Johnson and, congratulating him on his engagement. It's like, treat them like they're normal people, because they are. and very few actually ask them how they're doing or ask them about their dog or just like talk to them how you would normally talk to someone in the hallway. It's always, especially with football, there's just so many of us. So at times it's very hard to make it personal when you're in a scrum with Saquon and you're shouting over everyone. Like, that's not a normal conversation. So trying to just treat them like humans, I have found I get better relationships because of that.
Perfect. All right. Good, Jim.
As an old radio guy, I want to follow up on the WIP thing. You were already busy, doing the TV stuff with NBC Sports Philly. How did you end up on WIP? Did you pursue that? Did they come after you? And I mean, I heard your first couple of broadcasts on there, and you sounded like a natural fit.
Oh,
so
thanks.
how did that come about?
I was so nervous for that first show, like so nervous. Didn't sleep for 2 days. A little bit of both. Al Morgani, he kind of nudged me in there, and I had a tryout. And at that point, they were looking, I think, for newer talents. And it wasn't, hey, you got the job. It was, let's do a couple of shifts and see how you do. So at first, it was a shift a month. And then it became 2 shifts a month. And now I'm normally on about twice a week. So it's just been very similar, I think, to NBC. It's a small role. And this has somehow just followed me in my career. Just take the small role and make it something bigger. And that's why I encourage everyone. I have so many stories of colleagues of someone who took an internship in ticket sales and turned it into the director of broadcasting. Like, I am a big believer, just get yourself in the building because it's so hard just to do that. In sports, get your resume out of the stack. And even though it might not be your dream job, because frankly, it's not going to be when we're all starting out, like once you're in the building, you're cooking. Now you can have lunch with these people and start talking to them. But you're just going to be another LinkedIn message if you just wait on your dream job.
Really, it's a great question. And how long ago did you start at WIP? How long has it been now?
Been about a year.
About a year.
Yeah, work in progress.
All right, about a year. All right, who's next? Carrie, another one. Go ahead.
Well, what is your favorite story you've worked on?
Favorite story that you worked on? What do you got?
In Philly?
Anywhere.
Anywhere. I loved my second year in Jacksonville. We went to Leonard Fournette's hometown in New Orleans right after Katrina, and they were still, recuperating. And I think he's a very misunderstood person, and we showcase where he's from and the poverty and what they go through there in the 7th Ward in New Orleans, and that was like gnarly to see. And bringing that to Jaguars fans because at times he would just spit things off in the locker room, and I just feel like no one really got him. We did a documentary, and that's I wasn't even on camera for that. I was a field producer for that. But working on that, and very similar, we did a sit down with Jalen Ramsey, and he's definitely one that's a character and a personality. That is my favorite thing to do is like, why are you the way that you are? And I know there's a different side to this. Like, I think A.J. Brown is a great example of that. Like, I'd kill to do a sit down and like dive into that. But those are my favorite stories of like the person. Why are you this way? Like, we see you on the field, but what makes you tick over here? And those have always been my favorite stories. And John Tortorella, the sit downs with him they're so challenging. And I look back and those have become some of my favorite interviews because I know what went into them. 2 weeks of how do I ask it this way so I don't get yelled at type of way.
You actually sat down with him about, a week before he got fired?
Yeah, our coworkers joke that I'm the witching West here, that no one wants to talk to me anymore because of that. You never know what could happen.
Hey, it happens, right? Go ahead, Ryan.
So, talk about your journalistic approach going in there, because I'm, a writer for a school paper, and I ask a lot of questions to people. Talk about, your journalistic approach for asking questions.
Yes, it's, I always go with the approach, I never want to come across accusatory. And I think the best way to do that is to include numbers. Numbers never lie. And a lot of times we'll see, I think a great example of that this year has been with the Eagles passing game. And we knew that AJ and Devontae were frustrated with the amount of targets they got. So to go into a scrum and say, hey, you're not getting the ball, what's going on? Are you and Jalen seeing eye to eye? That's never going to get us the answer we want. But if I throw in, hey, you only got 5 targets this week, I'm seeing you got 7 this week, what's going into the amount of targets you're getting is a much better way to ask that. I always go with the approach, I'd rather be on the side of a little more fair than accusatory, which is something I'm still working on. I think that's the transition of coming from being a team reporter to a beat reporter. Team reporter, I'm always going to be team friendly. I'm never going to hound them. The interview with Torts is a great example of that a month ago. Like, we knew he was questioning getting fired. And that was the hardest thing for me, having such a great relationship with the person, knowing he's on the chopping block. How do I ask this respectfully? Hey, you think you're going to get fired? Like, I'd be out of the office so quickly. So I believe the way I asked it is, a lot of people assume you're going to go into management when it's the next step in your career. Where do you feel like your career is right now? And he said it himself, when it's my time to go, when Danny Breer said it's my time to go, I'm going to pack up and go. And that was our money answer. We blasted that everywhere. And I don't know if I would have gotten that answer if I said, hey, you think you're going to get fired? Which some reporters would do. And that's a fair question. But I don't feel like that's the respectful, right way to answer that. When it's something as emotional as a man losing his job, you know?
Thank you.
Working for a team, working for a company that owns a team, what are the challenges that you found that you have to navigate when put in that position of being a reporter, trying to be credible, and yet working for an owner?
Oh yeah, it's definitely, and that's where it helps having great relationships with my supervisors, my producers, my bosses. It's, you know, example, I had a good relationship with Slay in the Eagles locker room. We had multiple conversations about him retiring, and by no means am I Adam Schefter, but we got to the point where he was telling me that it was either he was going to retire or he wasn't going to play for the Eagles anymore. And I was like, wow, that's a story. It was the last home game. It's like, this is Slay's last time playing at the Link. However, we're the Eagles' partner. I don't think the Eagles necessarily want to get into a contract dispute the week of the playoffs. Should I, you know, tell this story, tell this source, and tweet it out? And it was a conversation with our entire office of, hey, is this the right thing to do? We decided it was, and it got great traction. And we use it in pregame, and, you know, that was NBC Sports story that Slay wasn't going to play for the Eagles anymore, but that wasn't something that I wanted to weigh. Oh, this is just my story, my decision. It has to be NBC Sports' decision. And that's with everyone. That's with John Clark. That's with everyone. You are a representation of the company, of the team. So I just always go with the side, never make it about you.
What was the reaction to that story from an Eagles standpoint, or did you hear anything on that?
The fan base, there was some negative reaction where it was like, why is this happening now? Like, I think the connotation was Slay's making it about him. Why is he talking about this? They should be getting ready for the playoffs. So the timing of it. But I just, again, the emotion side of it, I was like, this is a huge story. Like, the emotion of this corner that means so much to the team. This is his last time playing in the Link in the playoffs. Like, we got to tell the story now. This is when it matters. It doesn't matter in the Super Bowl. You already played the game. So it was balancing that of, could it be a distraction? But look at the emotion of this too.
All right, very good. Who's next? Go ahead, Caden.
So for you, moving forward, is there any dreams that you are kind of still chasing? And if so, what would you say your next step towards those dreams are?
Oh yeah, I've always, from the time I started, I've always wanted to do national network football. That's always been my goal. So whether that's NBC, Fox, CBS, I want NFL football on a network. And I know that's 1,000,001 jobs, and I know 1,000,000 people want it, but that's always been my goal. It's a really interesting time in the industry right now. I think you all will see it. The streaming side of this, no one really knows what's going to happen with this. Like, the way network television was 5 years ago isn't the same. It's something we go through every day. This is changing so much of this app and this streaming and who's going to have the rights in 2 years. So right now, it's hard to have a next step because no one really knows who's going to even own the rights to these leagues. So it's been frustrating because people ask, like, oh, what's the next 5 years look like? I'm like, gosh, are we going to have cable in 5 years? Like, that's a legitimate question right now. But I think it helps when you look at your goals and your dreams. It's when you have something big picture like that, like network football, I'm always trying just to point in that direction. And I think that helps at times, because I think if you look to broad or too singular. Okay, now we're going 10 different directions, and now we're not going towards the one big thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Skylar, she has your job. You want a sideline job. She has your job. What was your question, Skylar?
I was just gonna ask if you've had any like on-air mistakes, and if
Oh
so,
my
how
gosh.
did you
So many.
overcome them and not let them like get to you while you're live?
Yeah, it's sideline especially.
Yeah.
It can be so frustrating when, like we say, we work 3 days in Eagles locker room, and I screw up the 45 seconds, and I'm like, I just spent 4 days on this hit, and I screwed it up. So it's the importance of not putting too much pressure on the situation. I think also just the amount of reps you get helps. Like if I do screw up, say, a Flyers ringside hit, which I have, like knowing I'm going to get another one tomorrow, I think helps. And always keeping that in mind, like the one you screwed up is never the last one. And we've seen so many people screw up. It makes you human. I mean, I had one so bad a couple of weeks ago. My IFBs weren't working. You know when you call someone and you can hear yourself talk delayed and how hard it is to form words?
Yeah.
That happened to me live on air, and I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like I couldn't speak. And like I had people tweeting like, what just happened to Ashlyn Sullivan? I was like, great. But like I had another hit tomorrow, so it was fine. Now we forgot about it. I think it's easier said than done, but not being too hard on yourself, which I am the worst at, is something to keep in mind.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
All right. Next question. Who we got? Right here.
How did your experience, I know you said you did a little bit of play-by-play, how did that play-by-play experience prepare you for where you are now?
It really helped me learn the game. I mean, play-by-play, I'd encourage all of you to, if you want to do anything broadcasting, go do play-by-play for lacrosse, for softball. Like, they're looking for it. Those jobs are really in demand right now. It really helps you understand the game. It helped me so much with sideline, being concise, hosting. It's something you can't hide, play-by-play, and especially, I think, being a woman covering football, like, I think I got more respect because I was able to call football and understand it. I also, in Jacksonville, coach football, which really helps, like, understanding that viewpoint of it from, like, taking an angle on a tackle. Like, I know I'm not a dude, I've never put on pads, but, like, I coached it and I can see it. Like, constantly having to show that of why I can now understand when I'm watching Kenny Pickett in the pocket and I see him scrambling and I see him taking too long, or I see him not getting to his first read. Like, I saw that from a bunch of different levels of football. And not just saying it to say it. Like, no, I say it because I get it, you know?
You coach football?
I did. It was gnarly. Those parents, those dads, when they saw me walk out, they're like, what?
You gotta get more into that. You coach football. You can't just drop that and just move on. All right, what more about coaching football?
Yes.
How did that come about?
It was in Jacksonville. It was my second year with the Jags, and Brian Sexton, my correspondent, he coached middle school church league football, and he said, you want to be our OC? So I did it for 2 years. It was awesome. The moms were great. The dads were a little skeptical. Truthfully, the hardest part was just like wrangling 7th graders to like focus and like get it. But it helped me so much, like calling plays and like calling a scramble or calling a run here, or like why'd we do it here? Like, I think we make it so complicated at times. Like, you look at the NFL, you look at this grand scheme, like it's the same exact thing as 7th grade church league football when you really think about it.
Of course it is.
It's the same play.
Yes, it
and
is.
we make
It's
it
the
a
same.
really big deal. Like, we called a run here and they called a run there because of the same thing.
What was your favorite play?
We had a quarterback who was really fast and he could scramble better than anybody. So at times, like, not sticking to a play and just saying, like, sling it was like my favorite thing to do.
Sounds like Buddy Ryan as a coach when he had Randall Cunningham. Just go and make a play.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't call a play.
And I'd have
he
the
just said,
dad
"Go
like
make a
yelling
play."
at me in the stand, and like it was awesome.
All right, who else? What do we got? Who's next? Right here, Rasmus.
You mentioned with the NBC Sports Philly job that you kind of developed a relationship with an agency.
Mhm.
How did you kind of come about that? Like, how did you like put your trust into an agency, and how did you
Yeah.
welcome that opportunity that they presented you?
Yes, so I worked with one agent down in Jacksonville. He got me here to Philadelphia, and I think agent will be a big buzzword for anyone that wants to be on camera. I think they're necessary, but at that point, so I just actually changed agents last year. I think you'll see throughout careers, like as you progress, you'll go through different agents as well. An agent's really important for feedback, you know, sending them and being able to, at times, I hate watching it's like a player watching film. Like, I hate watching my hits back or my shows back because it's like, I knew I screwed up here. Getting it from a different party who has a bigger picture is really important. I see a lot, it's a lot of money, like 10% of your salary is a lot to give to someone. So I think at times I see people who get them really young where I don't know if it's necessary. I think when you're ready for the next step, you get one. Like, there wasn't a reason for me to have an agent 6 years in Jacksonville, but to go from Jacksonville to Philly, I needed one. And eventually when I want to go Philly to a network, I'm going to need one. But I see a lot of people pay all this money to like stay in the same place you would have stayed anyway. So it's like give or take on that.
It's a good question, though.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
It's a lot of money.
All right, right here. Yep.
Did you want to end up in Philly? Like, when you hired this agent, did you expect to be in Philly, or
No.
was it just...
When I say this was so random, I truthfully, I'd just given up. I had gotten so many no's. I'd gone through a couple tryouts, 3 times, ended up being the second person, which was brutal. It was a year-long process of like looking for a job is a job. So when you work all day and you have to come home and then look for a job was like grueling, which helped with the agent. But it was a year, and I remember I was sitting at the dog park and I was with my friend Abby, and my agent called. He said, "You're going to Philly Tuesday to try out for this." And I was like, "Hockey? Like what? Like Philly? Like no shot." Like it, and I feel like everyone says that, and it's important to remember when you're going through this job hunting process, like it takes one yes. And I got so many no's. And I know I'm going to continue to get so many no's, but when you get that yes, like take it, don't ask questions, and keep going, because it's rare to get a yes in this business. It's just the way it is. And I fear it's getting more and more competitive. So it's like at times you just can't be picky. Like take it and make it work, which is what I've done here.
You have to have thick skin.
You do, yeah. Oh my gosh, turn off your comments, turn off your DMs. Yeah, you don't need to read that.
But even to take the no's, though, I mean, you have to have a certain personality that you realize, okay, it's not personal. I mean, it's a very subjective thing about deciding I like you over this person.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that.
You do, and I think that's something I've gotten better with growing older in this industry. Is very rarely is it a shot on you or something about you. It's the business, the industry has an idea of what they want, and you don't fit in it. And like that's not a character flaw. You don't fit in that box that they're looking for. You know, for example, I was going for a different job, 5 years ago, and they were looking for someone who had analytical background in hockey. Like I don't have analytical background in hockey. I feel like I had a great tryout, but I am not that. And they hired someone who was a former college hockey player. Like, yeah, that makes more sense. Like, I didn't play college hockey. It's like, I can't get upset that I didn't get that because I didn't fit in the box that they wanted.
But you're a football coach. You should have brought that up in the interview.
I should have.
I'm a football coach, you know?
I'd be like, yeah, get out.
Wow, that's crazy. Why all these hockey jobs? Why,
hockey is, I'll tell you what, I think that's the league right now that is expanding the most. We say being a woman in this industry, I see so many women getting into hockey. Hockey is just, it's a really fast growing sport. I think we're seeing a lot of fandom all of a sudden in hockey. I think the NHL is really making a push to get to know these players better. I think that's a big lack in hockey is Travis Konechny could be walking on the sidewalk and like few know that's Travis Konechny. Mm-hmm. And you see it so much with the NFL. We know so much about these guys, their personalities, their families. NHL, I see that getting bigger, and with that's going to come so many jobs. Like social in the NHL right now is booming. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage everyone to look into those internships, those gigs, because I predict in 5 years that's going to skyrocket.
Beautiful. All right, go ahead, Carrie.
So, sorry, I have another question. But,
all you can ask.
So you talked about like you talk to players, like you have a relationship with them. How hard is it when you have players like Michkov, where there's a lot of big stories around him, but he doesn't speak English? So how do you have a connection with somebody who doesn't speak our language?
He's getting a lot better with his English. So I did the first sit-down interview with him, and it was hard. It was myself and Slava, the translator, next to me, and Michkov here, and a lot of ping pong, looking like not knowing where to look. Who was answering what? I think we talk about knowing the person personally, like just trying to talk to him not in an interview has helped, just like having normal human conversation where now, like, he asked me the other day about my dog. I was like, I didn't know he knew how to say dog or knew how to say George, my dog's name, but he did. So I think with a language barrier like that, and it's so prevalent in hockey, is like giving them grace, I think, and seeing that they're making progress and really concise, simple questions. Like, if I ever get Michkov in intermission, like, I know they have to be 3-word questions. Like, you can't get too analytical. So, like, making it really almost like simple, stupid in a way of, like, how was the period? The end. Yeah.
Is he speaking like you said? Okay, George dog. But is he putting sentences together in English?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he is.
Oh yeah. I see him aiming with his teammates.
So he's made a huge improvement from when he first arrived.
Huge.
Wow.
Yeah. To the point where I don't know if he'll even need a translator in a year.
Really?
Yeah. He's been impressive.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
What is he? 19?
20.
20.
20 now.
Okay,
Yeah.
20. All right. Go ahead, Justin.
If you could interview any player in Philadelphia sports history, who would it be?
Gosh, that's a good question. I really want to do that A.J. Brown sit down, I'm not going to lie, even though he's a present player. He's so interesting to me because you never know what A.J. you're going to get. Like, there's some Wednesdays I'm like, he's your best friend. And there's other weeks like you can tell that the targets are weighing on him.
Have you interviewed Cassie before?
No.
He's pretty interesting when he does his on there.
There's a lot of interesting athletes here in this town.
Cassidy's a must listen to, I have to say. You know, you never, like the other day when he had 3 hits and he was actually very good. It was a really good interview after the game.
But like Taryn, for example, Taryn Hatcher, I think she gets the best interviews with him.
Clark has gotten some pretty good ones with him as
But
well.
Taryn always talks about, because she's in the dugout every day and she's there every day, like they have a rapport. And like you see Castellanos on national TV, like he isn't giving them anything. But you see like Clark or Taryn or like the people that cover him every day, like, all right, like, and that's the importance of a connection, especially with a guy like that.
Is AJ, is that the player you have the best relationship with the Eagles?
Weirdly, I would say Saquon.
Really?
Yeah. I interviewed his mom at the Super Bowl, which I think really helped, having that angle of family. And I always with Saquon, because he was such the focal point all season, feel every pregame hit was about him. So it was a lot of waiting for the scrum to end. I think not even a female thing, I think an everyone thing. We didn't play in the NFL, most of us. Going up to him, I've had such success. Saquon, this happened last week. You ran this play, this happened. Can you explain this to me? I don't quite understand it. Like admitting you don't get something, because why should you? A lot of times I see on beats, it's like, oh, I've covered the NFL 25 years and I know what coverage you were in and you did this. Like, that doesn't work. And I think male or female, I've had the best success of like, can you explain this? I don't get this. Why'd this happen? And like, I get such great answers from, I think, at times checking your ego at the door that you don't know everything. There's a reason we didn't play in the NFL. I think has definitely helped.
So, how big of a factor was Saquon in your mind as far as the locker room, obviously a success on the field, but he was clearly the difference maker. But could you sense that as the season went on?
I think I sensed it
of Saquon.
I think day one. I mean, day one training camp practice was like, this is going to be special. And to the point where throughout training camp, I'm still so surprised. He was used so much in the passing game. And I thought for sure as the season developed, we see more of that. Like every training camp practice, they were bombing 40-yard passes. Like he was going one-on-one against corners. I was like, this is going to be epic how they try to divide and conquer this offense. And I'm still so surprised we didn't see that a lot this year. The whole like balance of the passing game and running game was fascinating because it was so pass heavy all of camp. And we all know bye week they changed to a run first offense. Like it was incredible how they made that shift in a week because we all saw it wasn't working. Like if they kept the way they were going, no shot they're in the Super Bowl.
He was one. I mean, guys talked to Sirianni saying, "Hey,
he was one. Yeah,
we need to change.
Yeah,
I mean, we have this great line. We've got the ability in the backfield. Let's run the ball."
Yeah, my favorite sideline story I did this year was, and it came from talking to him post scrum. Every Friday night, so the offensive linemen are normally out to dinner with their families. Saquon does a film session where he looks at everything he likes and he starts in a group text. He texts the offensive lineman what he wants to do that week. And that was my favorite sideline story because Jordan Mailata said he'd be on a date with his wife and he'd be like, Saquon's blowing up my phone again. It's like 15 plays they want to run. But it's like he took such ownership of what he wanted this offense to be, which I think is very rare for a player who's new to a team, new to a city. Like, I think that was all him, truthfully, of why that offense switched like it did.
Go ahead, right here.
Is there different ways to talk to players versus coaches when it comes to questions?
Yes. For example, and maybe, I mean, I just turned 30, so maybe I should stop. I will never call a coach his first name. He is coach. And it doesn't matter if it's hockey or football. Like, I'm never going to be like, hey, Nick. Like, I won't. But some reporters do. I think, whereas normally, as I've grown up, like a lot of times, especially, Jaguars 22, I was the same age as these guys. So treating them a little more like your peers, where there's a different level, I think, of professionalism, rapport, respect with a coach who has done this for so long. I would never in a million years have called Torts John, like, or Torts. I wouldn't have done it. So I think it's that relation, almost like a mentor, a boss. That's how I always look at a coach. Whereas a player, I have more success talking to them like our peers because they are. They're normally our same age, and I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Go ahead.
Do you ever have to talk to opposing teams or players?
Rarely. I think in this role where we're so home focused, but I do think it's a skill set I'd like to have, knowing I want to get to a network level job one day that you have to cover both sides. So as of right now, no. But it's just, frankly, we just don't have a lot of time. Like, you're so focused on like the Flyers and the morning skate and the Eagles. I do listen to opposing football teams' press conferences with coordinators, which is helpful, and a lot of times that'll help. Coordinators normally talk on Wednesdays. So say, at the time Cliff Kingsbury said something, I pull from that, and then I can have questions Thursday locker room to the players. Hey, your opponent said this. And instead of me coming up with that, nope, they said it, point is day. That helps at times, but as of right now, not too much, no.
All right. Great.
What's been your favorite player or coach that you've gotten an interview with in your career?
I got to do, both, because it happened at the same time. When Trevor Lawrence was drafted, I got to fly on the plane with him to Jacksonville, and he's such a cool person, so genuine. And to see him handle that moment of the pressure of being the number 1 overall pick and being the savior to the franchise and getting thrown into it right away, that was a really cool day. And then I did my hardest interview to this date was Urban Meyer. It was really hard, and I knew I really had to know my stuff. I had to know this team, and very challenging, very hard to get rapport, like normal conversation. He's very like, next question, let's go. I want to be here 10 minutes. So that was my most challenging interview, but one I'm really proud of also.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, that's an awesome story.
Oh, he's a great person. Yeah, very genuine.
Why hasn't it worked?
I could go all day about this. I think the biggest difference you see from the Jaguars organization to the Eagles organization is Jeffrey Lurie and the family-run organization, an owner that gets football, that breathes football, that's there every single day. The Kahn family, while they're very unique and very genuine, nice people, they have 15 things they're worried about. So we wouldn't see the Kahns for 3 months, and then they'd show up, and I just feel like as a whole, you put your entire trust into a head coach or a GM, and ownership leaves the building. And this better work because the owner isn't here. Whereas the Luries, like, they see it every day. If something's not working, it's let's fix it right away because he knows, he sees it. I sadly think that's going to be the issue with the Jaguars forever. Because it's just this merry-go-round.
All right. We'll get one more. Two more questions. You, Ryan, and then Sam. Go ahead, Ryan.
So you mentioned that Erin Andrews and Laura Rutledge were like your queens at Florida.
Okay. Still are.
So who is your inspiration in life in general?
Inspiration in life.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's like a Barbara Walters question. Are you going to cry?
I might.
Boy, look, Ryan,
It might have been Rory after yesterday. I was crying yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When he made that putt, picked up his little girl, I was
that was pretty good.
on the couch alone,
Pretty
like
good.
crying.
That jacket was nice on that
Pretty
field.
good, yeah.
That was awesome. My dad. My dad went from he works for Southern Wine and Spirits now, which is a major alcohol distributor. He went from being a box boy at Publix to running sales for the country. And I think that's why I have the work ethic I do, is I saw him grind. I saw him show up every day. I saw him not get home till 1 a.m. I think you need an example in your life of someone that started from nothing and became something. I think it's important to find that person, because it happens every single day. Constant reminder that it's not going to happen overnight. And that's something I really struggle with, is I want it now. I think I should be there now. Why did she get that job? Why didn't I get it? Because it's not your time yet. And I think that's something that, as a young person, I think we're all going to struggle with, is you want it now. And you think you're ready at 25, which, looking back, I wasn't ready at 25. I'm still not ready. And that's a hard thing to accept, day in and day out. But important to remember.
On behalf of dads, being a dad.
Yes. We love
Thank
dads.
you. Thank you very much. That's very nice. All right, Sam, you got the last question for the semester.
No pressure.
Go ahead, Sam. It better be a good one.
All right, no pressure, no pressure. You said earlier about coming up in the industry, being young.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like being the same age as some of these players? Like, I'm interviewing you and you're playing a sport and you're making X, Y, Z amount of money.
Yeah.
Because someone like Saquon Barkley, who's probably last year's most popular football player behind Patrick Mahomes, is younger than you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's especially, and the money thing is hysterical. Like, starting off in Jacksonville, I didn't make a ton of money, and I'm talking, like Trevor Lawrence, who at that point was my same age, and it's like, we can't relate, but we can relate on like being 24 years old. And I think, well, I got a lot of knock on being a young person. That was super helpful. And I think that's so important for you guys, when you're in covering college athletics, like, use that to your advantage. Like, no offense to the older people, but a lot of times on the beat, I am the youngest person. And there are reporters that have covered this team for 40 years. And their viewpoint is so different than my viewpoint. So let's use it to our advantage. Because I could ask a question about music, food, like whatever. I get it. They don't get it. And that's okay. But like, I think a lot of times you'll get knocked for being young. Like, I think it's a great advantage.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a good question? Was that a good
It
question?
was.
Ended up? That was
I
a good
liked it.
one? All right, let's thank Ashlyn Sullivan. It was appropriate to have Sam ask the last question, but all season long he's been cutting pizza, picking up the pizza. He did it last year as well. I want to thank you publicly. Thank you so much for being Mr. Pizza Guy. And then he hasn't missed pizza in the pros. I don't think you've ever missed it since you've been here on campus.
Once for blue coats.
Once for Blue Coats. But here he's with Monet Davis, there with Craig Carton. All right, so thank you, Sam. Also, I want to thank Carrie Letizia. Carrie will be leaving us. She's been with the center how many years? 1.5. Like 1.5 years with the center. Done a marvelous job. Thank you, Carrie. And she's doing great things. Have you seen Carrie around the building?
Not yet.
Yeah, well, she's been. Yeah, she works with
Casey
Casey, with Feeney. With
Great
hockey,
guy.
yeah, hockey, and basketball too. You do the Sixers too, right? Yeah. All right, so thank you, Carrie. And then I want to thank. All right, here you go, Frankie. Frankie's been doing social media. Ashlyn will be the judge if you do a good job with social media today. All right.
I already know she did.
She did a good job. She did. So both are seniors. You've been with me 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. How many years?
Round up, I don't even know.
All right. And then the next year, we're going to have this crew of Caden right here and also Han over here. And then, of course, we want to thank Jenna for the center. So that's the crew next year. Look, it was a great semester. We started out with Dave Sims here beginning of the year, if you recall, this semester. And then we just had a wonderful semester. It was a great turnout all semester long. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again in the fall. Enjoy the last couple of weeks of the semester.